It's counting down. It looks like we're going live. I'm going to start rabbiting it saying, yes, we're live now. So hello, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you've been enjoying it so far. It's Tina here again, just in case you didn't know, for the self-care summit. And this afternoon, we are joined by the lovely Shonagh. And hi. I just want to remind people to put comments in the comments, and chat away, ask us questions. Let's get this a bit more interactive. I think Shonagh's session is going to be a little bit more demonstration wise. So yeah, we can get involved. So if there's any questions at all, pop them in there. Do give us some thumbs up and some hearts. And if you're watching on replay, #replay, just so that other people get to see it as well. So, we all forget, don't we? So if it comes up then on our feed, because Facebook has given it a little bit of a kick with the algorithm when we've said hello and commented and put our likes in, then yeah, it's all good. Because that's the idea of this week, is to get this message out to as many people as possible. So that's me. That's my little rabbit done. I'm going to hand over to Shonagh. And do you prefer Shonagh or Shonie?
Either one. More than happy with either. I use Shonie just because of the spelling quite often, and the spelling puts people off. So you can say Shonie.
Okay. So, and I did say it's Shonagh, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm saying it right. So I then doubted myself then when you're saying, oh yeah, I'm like, oh no, how embarrassing. But yeah, so Shonie's gonna show us how she looks at self-care, and I'm gonna hang around and hopefully learn some things too. Lovely to have you here, Shonagh.
Oh, thank you very much for inviting me. I'm just going to give out a little warning that I am at home with kids, dogs, husband, a couple of guys on the roof who are pointing my chimney. So if there is a little bit of noise, I do apologise for that. If you follow me on Instagram, you might know I've mentioned this a few times, but I have a sign by my front door, that says, peace is not to be in a place where there is no trouble, hard work or noise. Peace is to be in the midst of all of those things and have calm in your heart. And that to me is very much my house. I'm here with you present today, so no matter what's going on around me, I might get dogs bounding on my head at any point, but I am here with you and there is calm in my heart. So as Tina said, I'm going to be a little bit interactive today. I appreciate you're watching on Facebook Live, and well, I know I tend to do that while also doing other things as well, which you shouldn't do really. If you say that, don't you should concentrate on one thing, but I tend to be making tea or doing whatever else. So you can join along with me. That would be lovely. But if you're not in a position to do so, don't worry. I'll be demonstrating some exercises, and just take what you need from that. If there's anything that you particularly resonates or you think, I'd love to try that, then have a go later. You can always watch back on the replay. Don't forget to #replay. Or you can take them and adapt them however you need. I think I'm just going to do a couple of really, really simple things as I'm talking, to show you how easy really using art as a form of self-care can be. Because I know sometimes when we say the word art, alarm bells go off in a lot of people's heads. And we'll talk a little bit about that as we go along. But yeah, so Ash, if you want to join along with me, fantastic. All you would need would be a pen and a paper, something to make a mark with or something to make a mark on. So, jam your hands on the table, whatever it is that you can lay your hands on at the moment. But come along with me, join me on the journey, watch what I'm doing. And if you can, join in. And if not, feel free to take any of these exercises and adapt them later. That would be great. So I always start when I'm kind of introducing this topic to people with the message that I want them to go away with. So if you remember nothing else from the next hour, or you can't stay for an hour, this is what I want you to remember. If I was to offer you a pill and said, right, this pill is clinically proven to make you happier and healthier, and it is free, anybody can take it, there are absolutely no side effects, and it's even actually quite pleasurable to take, I think your first reaction would probably be, that sounds too good to be true. But if I could convince you that that did existed, I think most people would be like, yeah, that sounds like something I want a little bit more of. art for wellbeing has had as many clinical tests as any other drug on the market. It's been tested again and again and again with people and different situations and different kind of conditions all over the world. And again, it comes back out as having a really positive impact. But we live in a society where art has been put in a box, on a pedestal, in a museum, or in a gallery with a really scary receptionist that none of us want to go past. And it belongs to people who are good at it, or it belongs to people who are trained in it. And it belongs in specific places. So, a studio, or I say a gallery or a museum. And we're excluded from it. We've got this amazing tool right at our fingertips for self-care. And we choose as a society to say, oh no, that's not for us. Art's only for a certain type of person and in a certain type of place. And the rest of us will just have to carry on doing what we can with what we've got. And so my message is really that this is something we all have access to. It does not require any skill. It does not require any special equipment or any special materials. It does not require a clean table. If you were to go around my house, you would struggle to find a space at any table. It doesn't require any great knowledge. You don't need to have the greatest selection of oil paints with you. It really doesn't need all of those things. It's something that we can do every day that is proven time and time and again to make us feel better. And yet we don't. So this is it. This is what my message really to the world is, to go out and to say to people, just try it. It's not for everybody. I appreciate in the same way that there's lots of positive benefits associated with sport, and yet not for me. That's fine. But I think so many of us have been put off trying art because we were told at school that we couldn't draw, or we couldn't sing, or we couldn't dance, or we couldn't act. And we get to a certain age where it's only acceptable to do those things anymore if we're good at them. So when we're children, we're encouraged to do all those things. We're encouraged to write poems and make up stories and dance and sing and draw and paint and, just be as creative as we possibly can. And then suddenly we hit this point where it's like, oh, well, you're not good at it, so you can't carry on. And it's going back to that childhood state of making for the pure joy of it, not worrying about what we're going to make. I tell all of my clients that come in on my one-to-one sessions, we are making a masterpiece because you are the masterpiece. Your life is the masterpiece. Any piece of paper we draw on, or a little sculpture we make, or anything like that, those are just like the little tests. You are the masterpiece. We don't need to make something beautiful. We don't need to make something meaningful. It's the process. And I think when we talk about art for relaxation, I'm very specifically not talking about looking at a beautiful picture for half an hour, although that is lovely. Highly recommend looking at a beautiful picture for half an hour, but that's not what art for wellbeing, art for relaxation is about, really. It's more about making art, and in the process of that, it relieves stress, it relieves anxiety, it helps us to calm down, it helps us to process our emotions, all of those kind of positive benefits. And the actual what we make, the end product, doesn't matter. So that's kind of the main thing I want you to remember going into this. Don't be worried or pressured or feel intimidated by the word art at all, because if it was wrapped up in any other package, that's a form of self-care that can really have some incredible benefits. You'd be going, yep, gimme. But for some reason, we get panicked just at the words. So that's my disclaimer up at the top. And I was really, really pleased when Tina reached out about being part of this, because she said, oh, it's self-care for entrepreneurs who have chronic pain conditions or other conditions. And I thought, how does she know? I must have looked like, I must have been grimacing in a video or something like that. Or because I realised I don't talk about the fact that I'm an entrepreneur with a chronic pain condition. I haven't got it written in any of my bios, none of that kind of thing. I thought, how does she know? And it really made me think about why I don't claim that identity. And I think a lot of it is that we are expected as entrepreneurs, as like CEOs of our own companies, and particularly when it's service-based, so coaches, trainers, teachers, etc., to present an image of perfection, to present an image of strength, to hide any vulnerability. Because there's that idea in the back of our head, that little voice that says, how can you possibly help somebody if you can't fix yourself? If you can't do it for yourself, how could you possibly help anybody else? And I'm sure if you're watching this, you kind of already know that there's lots of conditions, challenges, situations that can't be fixed, they can only be managed. And we do a bloody good job of managing them most days. But we hide them because it's that idea of, well, nobody will want to buy from me, or nobody will believe in the power of what I'm selling if they see me suffering, if they see me in pain, if they see me getting angry, if they see me getting frustrated. Because why doesn't this work on me? Not realizing what I would be like if I didn't have all of these tools. I wouldn't even be able to be here, never mind being able to be here and be smiling. So yeah, actually it was really, really interesting that I don't claim that identity. So the first exercise I wanted to do really was something that I use for my self-care, which is about letting go of perfection, about letting go of the need to be good, or the need to be perfect, or the need to be right. And this is something a lot of artists actually do as part of their practice, from an art perspective, because it's the idea of letting go of the fear of making a mistake, of allowing creativity to flow through you. Art therapists also use this a lot in clinical settings, because again, that metaphor of not being perfect, of not being good, of not needing to be, just making and joy. And I use it because of what I was talking about before, about that idea of going back to a childhood state of joyful creation. Mm-hmm. So really, really, really simple. And if you're doing this along with me, you just need a bit of paper and a pen, something to make a mark on, something to make a mark with. I'm going to say Tina's going to be my wonderful.
Yeah.
By my glamorous assistant. Wonderful. And very simply, we're going to take our pen, and whatever hand you normally write with, you're going to swap it to the other one. So if you're left-handed, you're going to do it in your right hand. If you're right-handed, you're going to do it in your left hand. If you're ambidextrous, then you just show off, you won't do it in your mouth. I've never actually met an ambidextrous person. I'm sure there must be people out there. I'd be extremely impressed. But if you are, then do it in your mouth. But everybody else,
my granddad, actually, just picking up on that point. My granddad was paralysed from the waist up. So yeah, which way round was it? He couldn't use his arms. No, it was from the neck down. Sorry, I'm like trying to think, which way was it? I could see him sitting there, but what couldn't he move? Yeah, so he couldn't use his arms or his legs. So he used to paint with his mouth. Amazing. He made leather goods, and
wow, it's incredible. But again, it's that idea of you'd make something very different, because the connection with your body will be completely different.
And there's an association called the Foot and Mouth Artist Association or something along.
I've never heard of them. I must look them up. They sound amazing.
So if you are put off by do it in the other hand,
try that. Please do. But also, please take pictures, because that just sounds great to watch. So we're going to take our opposite hand, and for the purposes of this, we're going to draw me. That's because I cannot be offended. I've done this with groups so many times. I've been drawn in so many ways. I am impossible to offend at this point. I did once do it when very, very early in my career with a group where there was a little bit of simmering tension that I hadn't picked up on when I first walked in, and I asked them to draw each other, and it nearly came to blows. So from that point on, I learnt my lesson, and I asked people to draw me. So all you're going to do, 1 minute, you're going to draw me with the wrong hand. Simple as that. And go, now. I'm going to draw myself, just so you get an idea of the high level of quality that we're looking for here. So this also works. You can do it with the wrong hand. You can do it not taking your pen off the paper. That's another way to do it. not looking at the paper at all. It's anything that basically takes you out of feeling the need to accurately represent what you can see. You can only do your very best in abstract, really, with what you can see in front of you. Someone did ask me,
you can't be offended.
Picasso did it. I'm like, maybe.
I'm so glad you can't be offended.
I cannot be offended, honestly. And when you see mine, you'll realise why. Okay, I think that's about a minute. And you don't need to put a time limit on this either. I mean, I only do that because we've only got an hour, and we could probably do it for half an hour and watch our pictures get increasingly silly. So I'm gonna just give myself some ears. I feel a need for ears. Right. So I will share my wonderful drawing there. As you can see, it's very accurate. It looks just like me. But what I want you to do is, once you've done that, I want you to imagine a child that you love. So that might be your own child, that might be a grandchild, that might be a niece or a nephew, or a godchild, or I don't know, the son or daughter of a good friend or family friend. It might be a neighbour. It might just be a child you see on the street, on the bus sometimes, that you always particularly enjoy watching them. And I want you to imagine that they come up to you and they're giving you that picture, and they go, oh, look what I've drawn. And they're so excited, and they're so, so proud and want to show you. And you wouldn't look at what you've done and go, oh dear, well, that doesn't look very much like her, or that doesn't look very much like anything. Ooh, I think her lips are 3 times the size of her head. And you would think, wow, that's been done with love and joy and pride. And you would find something in that picture to compliment them on. So that's what I want you to do when you do this exercise, is to look back at your picture and find something in it to compliment yourself on. And it might just be how free the line is, or it might just be you've captured a certain expression. You don't even quite know why, because it's weird, because you've only really done circles, but something there. I want you to find the thing in it that if you were talking to that child you look, you would compliment them on. So let go of the idea of this needing to be something that would be hung in a gallery, and just appreciate it for the fun that you have in that 1 minute to do it. And that's kind of the type of exercises that we use a lot around this idea of letting go of perfection, letting go of the need to be good at everything, which we put on our shoulders as adults so often. I don't know if anybody's in the same situation as me. I quite often pick up a new hobby or pick up a craft, and then after a month I get frustrated because I can't do it yet. And of course I can't do it. Of course I can't. It's something you learn over years and years and years. I have a friend who teaches drawing to adults, and she says that she can tell from the first lesson when that person was told to stop drawing, when they stopped drawing for fun. Because there's a really specific development phase in drawing, starting off with splodges, and then we kind of go to circles and stick men, and it kind of goes up and up and up. And of course, if we carry along that development phase and we carried on drawing every day, if I drew every day, Tina drew every day, in a year we will be much better at drawing. But we stop when we're told we can't draw for fun anymore, or when the idea of drawing for fun becomes something that seems too frivolous. And she can tell to the year, you were 9, you were 11, you were 14, when people stopped drawing for fun, because suddenly they didn't do it every day. They didn't do that practice. They didn't kind of just let it be and let it flow and see what happened next. And it became something that you only did in the context of an art lesson, or you only did in the context of maybe a workshop you'd gone to. And now all these people are coming back to her as adults going, I really want to draw. I love drawing. It's great fun. And her classes are full. And that's why, it's because people rediscovering that that creativity that we push down and put in a little box and mark childhood things and push into a drawer and say, well, we'll not be getting those out again. So I'll explain a little bit about my background. So I've been, for the last sort of 15 years or so, I've been facilitating art workshops and projects in community settings. So that's quite a range of places, really. I've done workshops in football stadiums, I've done workshops in laundrettes, I've done workshops in shopping centres, but the real kind of the meaty stuff, the stuff that I really, really enjoy is working particularly with women, not always, but particularly with women in care settings, so hospitals, hospices, community care support, and in the justice system, so women on probation, women who just got out of prison, and the care system in the sense of social services interaction. So I've done quite a few projects with birth mothers or women that have some engagement with social services. So quite often it's women that are at a point of crisis or just coming out of a point of crisis. So the women that are really in the most challenging situations of their lives. And quite often, you know, I'm commissioned to come in and to do an art workshop with them, and they'll be sat there going, when the last thing we bloody need right now is an art workshop. And, you know, we've got all of these problems, got all of these challenges on our shoulders. This really difficult time we're going through. And you're making us sit here and like do an art workshop. And I have seen time and time and time again that transformation that has happened to those women, because quite often it's the first time they've been listened to. It's the first thing that they've done that they've been proud of in a really long time. It's the first opportunity they've had to really express themselves and to be angry and to be in pain and to be frustrated and to be sad and to be happy and have all of those emotions come out in a really safe way, in a really positive way. That they're not being judged for, and it's not therapy in the sense that, you know, they're trying to, it's just a really safe, caring space to be able to work through things. And I see it again and again, you know, people that come in at the beginning and I'm like, and at the end they're going, that was incredible, I'll be coming back next week. And they come back week and week and week, even though at the beginning they were saying, I'm not creative, I'm not artistic, I won't enjoy this, I don't know why I'm here. Probation officer said I had to come. Quite often I get through, I've been told I have to come, is one that comes up again and again. I'm thinking, okay, well, hopefully by the end of the project, you want to be here. I've never had anyone yet who, by the end of the project, hadn't wanted to be there, because it's just this sort of transformation of having this tool at your fingertips to be able to work with everything that's going on in your head without having to express it in words necessarily. Just being able to get it all out there and be able to have stress relief in this really calm, safe environment. So one of the projects that I do myself, that I've taken all over the country now, and again, I've worked in so many different kind of settings with this, is it's called Care Instructions. And it's a really simple little creative exercise, I suppose. I kind of flesh it out into a full workshop, but we'll just do the kind of the basic one today. And it's a really simple exercise. And all I do is ask people, if you were an item of clothing and you had a label, how you wanted to be cared for, what would that label say? So we all have the fancy dry clean only, where you think, why did I ever buy that? I'm never going to go to the dry cleaners.
Don't wear it.
Yeah. Why? It looks so good on the rack and now. So we all have something like that. But we have, every item of clothing we have has a label in it that says wash at 40 or do not iron or whatever it might say, do not dry clean. If you had a label that was your label, that was just about how you wanted to be cared for, on a day-to-day basis, what would it say? And it's, I say, a really, really simple little exercise. If people want to do that along with me now, I'll keep talking, but it's sometimes the labels are this long. Sometimes it's 3 or 4 words. Quite often people use symbols to represent the things that they would like to put on there. And what's been really astonishing, I say, I've done this all around the country, with people in so many different walks of lives. Sort of, I did it with teenagers who are having psychotic episodes. I've done it with refugees and asylum seekers. I've done it with so many women's groups, so many women's groups. I've done it with quite sort of privileged women that, you know, on the surface you wouldn't think they were having any internal challenges, but actually I think everybody has their own battles to fight. And what comes out again and again is just how simple our needs are quite often, but we don't ever think about them or express them for ourselves. It can be something simple like, I need hugs, or I really like a hot bath, or give me a coffee in the morning, or tell me you love me. And it's just really simple, basic things that we don't necessarily ask for. We just know instinctively when we come. I've never had anyone get stuck on this, because once you start, I think people always, if anything, they think of too many ways that they like to be cared for. And what I do at the end of the workshop, once we've done our care labels, is we write them out onto a slip of fabric or onto a slip of paper, and we pin them inside whatever you're wearing at the time. And the idea is that you could do that on a daily basis. So every day you just reminded yourself what you needed, and you could make that happen. In the same way, you know, you might visualize something happening. If you think, okay, what I need on a daily basis is someone to tell me they love me, a cup of coffee in the morning and a hot bath at night, I'm going to make that happen. And you carry it around with you all day as your care label under your clothes. And it's really funny because I still get like picture messages from groups I worked with years ago saying, I'm wearing mine today. And they'll just show me the inside of the thing, and it's just got a pin in it and a little label. And it's this idea of kind of art that's really personal and really kind of almost secret, but that it's simple, and boiling it right back down to, how do we treat ourselves as well as we might treat our favourite cashmere sweater? Do we treat ourselves as well as we might treat our old raggy dressing gown? Not always, not always. So that's another exercise I'd love for people to have a try at. If you want to share in the chat afterwards, I'd love to know what your care instructions were, but if they are private and secret, that is equally all right as well. Mine do change quite regularly, because I do the workshop quite regularly. I often find myself changing mine, usually according to the seasons as well. My care needs in summer are very different than what I ask for in autumn. So I'll ask for, you know, to be by the sea comes up quite a lot during the summer, and then not so much so in autumn. Autumn's more like, give me a hot chocolate, a long walk in the forest. Yeah. Okay.
Do you want to hear some from the group? Do you want to? Yeah, we've got one that says, care with love and respect.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So nice. Yeah, someone else is saying they definitely get it. That's what they were talking about this morning. I think that might have been your previous point about, you know, perfectionism and things. Yeah. So another one is handle with care.
Love that. Love that. When we first went into lockdown, was it March 2020, and we were all trying to find weird and wonderful ways to keep ourselves occupied, I was on Instagram being a care label psychic. So people would send me the pictures of whatever their favourite item of clothing was, care label, and I would tell them their fortune based on that care label. And of course, I mean, you know, with utter disclaimer, I have no psychic kind of powers whatsoever, and the fortunes were entirely made up. It was just, you know, it was a just for fun thing. But actually, people really responded to it.
Yeah,
it's really simple, because I just read the symbols, and I was, you know, if it said 40 and in the kind of the tub thing, I'm like, oh, you need a hot bath. Or if it had the circle with the cross through, which I still don't know what that means. Possibly means don't dry clean, or don't. There's a circle with a cross for it, and I'm like,
I think it's don't bleach.
Don't bleach.
Is it bleach?
When it became a fortune, that means have a slice of cake. And the iron looks very much like a kettle. So if it had the iron and the don't bleach symbol together, that meant you needed a cup of tea and a cake. So yeah, I was giving out actual kind of care fortunes.
Yeah. Don't care via label. Yeah. Okay.
it was very enjoyable. I dressed up and everything, but it's just that silly thing. But I think it's that the same idea that do we treat some of our items of objects that we own better than we do ourselves? And also, I think, and this goes back to the kind of creating like a child thing, sometimes we need permission to look after ourselves. So I think the idea that some balmy woman dressed up as a psychic on Instagram was telling you that you need to stop and have a cup of tea and a cake and then a hot bath, and people were actually doing it. And it was just that permission from somebody who was saying, no, you must, it's your fortune of the day, is that you must stop, or you must go to the sea, or you must, whatever kind of the fortune that I told was, this is something you must do today. And it was like, oh, well, I must do it then.
It fits in with what we were talking about this morning, was about people don't always feel that they're worthy of that time or that care that we would give someone else, or as you say, your cashmere jumper or your wool, your real wool. You just you wouldn't just bung it in with the other stuff. You would take care of it and talk about it in a different way. And so having that permission from someone to do that is really huge, isn't it? We don't necessarily need it, but we feel as if we do. So giving people permission is that is a lovely thing to be able to do, isn't it?
And I think that's possibly why the writing your care label out and putting it somewhere, even if it's just a piece of paper folded up in your pocket, again, that it becomes official. It becomes something that you are allowed to ask for because it's written down. It's it's not just a wavy thought in your head that you might like to have a hug, or you might like someone to tell you some praise. You've got it written down, so it's all right to ask for it. And as humans, I think that's something that we come back to again and again, this idea of permission for care. Because so this is I'm going off on a tangent here. This is my PhD research subject, but spaces of care so often are quite institutionalized. So we immediately revert back to our childlike state. So if you think about, even like hospitals are kind of the obvious one, but even when you go into kind of a spa and you're literally stripped of your clothes and given a gown, and you revert back to this state where someone's telling you where to be and move on to this room now, and you sit here and we'll bring you things. And this idea that we associate care with being almost held and looked after us in a childlike state. So we don't need to make decisions for ourselves. We enjoy the kind of the giving over that responsibility of giving over kind of almost part of our adult identity to be able to say, okay, I'm in the hospital now, I'm going to listen to the doctors and nurses, or I don't know, I'm in a care setting, out in the community, and that is something that I can, be part of, but I can almost finally take away the adult responsibility, adult burden of making my own decisions and let somebody else do that for me. And that comes down to that permission thing as well, I think. Yeah,
that is that responsibility, because we get burdened with responsibility. It feels like a burden. A lot of the time we take it on unnecessarily and unconsciously, but we do feel that weight of responsibility. Those so many words that come to mind at the moment, but having someone else say, you don't have to carry that, you can do this other thing instead. It just feels that weight lifting. You don't have to make that decision for yourself.
And I just, that's part of, I think, a lot of the therapeutic art stuff. And one of my kind of big intentions is looking at art therapy, but removing it from a clinical context. And art therapy is incredible. It's an incredibly powerful tool, and very, very highly regulated for a reason, because it's such a powerful tool. But there are so many tools within that we could use every day. I use them every day for pain relief. I use them every day for stress relief. And because we've almost kind of packaged it up as it being clinical, unless you're prepared to kind of go and wait or pay to see somebody privately, and and then again put yourself in the context where I'm doing this for 1 hour a week in a certain room with a certain amount of materials with me, and again we kind of compartmentalize. But actually I'm all about making those same tools available for people's self-care, so they can use them for themselves, so they can incorporate them into the daily routine, because it's so easy to incorporate these things into our daily routine. We were talking earlier, weren't we, about the breath work, which is something that I do a lot whenever I'm kind of feeling a panic coming on, or I'm having a moment, or I'm about to scream at my kids, or whatever it might be, which is a really, really simple exercise, which is simply to draw your own breath. So it's to focus on your breathing, but rather than trying to change your breathing in any way or control your breathing in any way, you literally take a pen and a paper, or I was saying I've done it waiting for interviews and things where it's a little bit stressful, just in the glass, on the condensation in the glass, just my finger. And it's just about literally just drawing your breath as you go in and out. And some people do it in circles, some people kind of cover a whole piece of paper. I was trying to show you what I'm doing like that, and they kind of draw almost where the breath will cover and go around. But it's just such a soothing thing to do, and it takes you so in tune with your body and what it's doing, but not trying to control it, just being in harmony with it. I think that's such a gorgeous technique that everybody should know.
It's so simple, isn't it? And you can, as you say, you can do it on paper, but you can do it on the, and you said about doing it on your leg as well with your finger.
All the time, yeah.
That's the thing, isn't it? Those things don't cost anything. They don't take time. Nobody else needs to know what you're doing. Unless you've got a bit of paper there, they might see that. But if you're out in public, you can draw on your arm, or draw on on the desk or something in front of you. You can do these things without having it to cost money, to take time, and they're also helpful. I mean, when you said about I saw you doing it on Instagram, and I was like, that's exactly the sort of thing that I'm always looking for new ways of doing it, because people don't always like concentrating on their breath. A lot of people, when you concentrate on your breath, you get panicky. You can't breathe. You forget how to breathe. And you go, breathe.
I'm trying to breathe in and out at the same time, and I'm like, am I breathing in my nose? Oh yeah, it's all disastrous.
And where am I breathing to? You said to do my tummy, but it's my chest that's moving. Just draw it, and it's so much more simple, and it's just a lovely practice, that you can get into. And the more you do these things, the more you're going to come back to it time and time again.
And that just shows as well, I think, that again, this idea that people have about what therapeutic art might be, and they assume you're going to be in a room with oil paints, throwing them around to express your emotions. Drawing your breath is about as far from that. You can't get that wrong. How can you possibly get that wrong? It doesn't matter how you do it. It's literally just about making a mark. That's all it is, making a mark to represent what your body's doing. You cannot absolutely get that wrong unless you forget to breathe, which is what happens when someone tells me how to breathe. But actually the drawing, that's never happened yet, and it has soothed quite a few panic attacks on my part. So, and even I said it's a pain thing as well, it's I don't do this, but I have come across people that draw their pain, and I think that depends on whether you're the kind of person who leans into it or leans out, because I think there's two different types of people, isn't there? There's people that lean in, and there's people that lean out. If you're somebody that leans in, it's another technique.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, it's similar. It goes in line with mindfulness, and like with the breath, we'd use our imagination to imagine the breath building the balloon as we breathe out, and then the balloon goes into the stomach, and so we can do it that way. But with pain, seeing pain in colours and shape, and in the intensity of it, and whether it's fluffy lines or sharp lines or spiky, and is it black, red, or is it nice and green today? Is it like calm, and is it liquid? Is it moving? And you can draw those, you can paint them, you can use different types of ways of expressing them on paper, or on anything really. It doesn't have to be paper.
I mean, one of the things I do, and part of this is just to make myself laugh a little bit, but I draw knots, like that, scribble, and then I give it the equivalent of googly eyes. If I've actually got any googly eyes, it will get real googly eyes. But if it's just on paper, it just gets drawn googly eyes, and that is my pain. And it's a little monster. It's my little monster, and it gets a name. So like, some days it gets a name, and some days he gets bigger and smaller, and we have conversations with him. And it's that kind of just being able to have a focus, I think, for that. As opposed to it going internal, it suddenly becomes an external thing. And
Externalize.
You getting on my nerves today. Why? And and I mean, it's hard to be mad at anything with googly eyes. That's my.
That's it. You're just a squiggle. Go away.
But it's that kind of it's just using your imagination. A lot of this stuff, and it's putting your imagination and your body together through really, really simple mark making. And I'm a really big fan of colour therapy. I love stuff like that. But I think you can go really deep into that, and it's gorgeous, but you don't need to. You could literally just say, my favourite colour is yellow, and this morning I'm going to make a decision that I'm going to dress in yellow. And you don't necessarily need to know why. You don't necessarily need to go any further than that. It's just that idea of assigning colours to things can be such a simple way of changing moods or really thinking about moods as well. It's really lovely.
Yeah. I've just noticed we've got another comment in it. I think it's relating perhaps back to what we were talking about before. So sorry, I sort of interrupted. She said, I think half the problem with art is that it's become a school subject and something that's assessed. And you don't feel like you're good at it, or if you're not good at it and you don't get the grades, then you don't get the grades. So it goes back to what we were saying.
I will share my story because it's my
do it well, and we don't. We don't do. We're not at school anymore. We're out of school.
So not that I'm still bitter. But I was not allowed to take GCSE art at school because I wasn't good enough. So I stopped doing art as a subject when I was in I think it's called year 9 now, isn't it? So year 9, that was the last time I took art at school. Even though I loved it, I knew that I loved it. I knew I was always doodling and painting. I loved it, but I wasn't very good at it. So I wasn't allowed to take it for GCSE. And I then didn't do anything art related for a very, very, very long time, because in my head, that's what I've been told. The teachers had said, you're not good enough. And it all came down to this one particular lesson where I had to draw an apple, and you had to do the shading on an apple. I'm still terrible at shading. That's fine. It's a skill. It's a skill on and of itself. Not one I had, so I wasn't allowed to do it. And so I went off and I did different subjects, and I went to university doing something completely different. And it was only when my 3rd child was born that I suddenly went, sod it. What have I got to lose? And I went back and I went to art. I was the oldest student in art school, hilariously. I was the mature one. I wasn't very mature, but I was the oldest one by a long way. And then, I went back and did a master's degree, and then a second master's degree, and I'm currently studying for a PhD in fine arts. I will be a doctor of fine art without having a school level. School level, and every now and then I think I might maybe I'll go back and get a GCSE once I've got my doctorate, just to see. Almost as an art project in and of itself.
Exactly. It's very similar to me. I never had any psychology. I wanted to do psychology and sociology at school. Never got to. Weren't in that proud that we were going that way. So went a different way, and then years later go back and
I think you get
psychology.
You're like, I don't actually care what they think anymore. This is what I will love, and I want to do it. And there's always something about, even if you're not very good or you're not naturally talented at something, the more you practice at it, the more you're going to get better at it.
But is that not what you're there for, to learn?
Well, and if you love something, you're more inclined to practice it. So your rate of improvement goes whoomp. And art is so subjective anyway that who's to say who's good, who's bad.
And your shading might have been brilliant, but they just did not appreciate it.
I think that's probably what it was. It was eclectic contemporary art conceptual shading as opposed to actually look like an apple.
Yeah, you weren't being realist at all. You just very
yes, it's just this funny thing that people kind of say, oh, you know, they assume that I've had this quite straightforward path where, you know, you do a GCSE and then you go and do a BTEC and then you go to university and you go to art school and etc etc. I didn't at all, nothing to do with any of this until I was in my 30s.
Yeah,
and I was just like, this is what I want to do. I don't really care if I can't shade an apple. I'm going to go and do it anyway. No one can stop me. And I think that helps when I'm working with groups where people tell me they aren't artistic, because when you really start to dig down as to what that means, it so often comes down to somebody at school said, you think, what are the schools doing? Why?
I've put on here as a comment to someone is school has a lot to answer for.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think schools, do take creativity, and exercise is the other thing that they're now sort of demolishing. But I was always told I wasn't creative because I wasn't musical. I wasn't naturally an artist. I couldn't sing, I couldn't dance, just like you were saying earlier. These things that you're told. But this just lately I've been like, actually I write a lot, and I write stories, I write poems, I write blogs, I write posts, social media. Creative, different type of creative, but I don't necessarily want to be able to sing. If I did, I could try, but that's what you're saying is, it's not too late, and if you love it, go for it
forever. And I think that really narrow definition of what creativity is it's not just school, and that's something that we get bombarded with a lot. But really, I mean, if you kind of go back to the basic, what is being creative is to create something, is to make something in the world that wasn't there before. So you've created a business. I mean, wow.
Yeah. And a lot of the women in here, you've also created other human beings, and that's very creative. How you create
up there with the most creative people on earth. I mean, and the fact every mum I know can rustle up a fancy dress costume, a cake,
a meal out of tortilla beans and
shield out of nowhere. How creative is
that? Yeah, and a meal out of nothing.
But I think we kind of have this really narrow idea if it has to be one of these types of creativity, and it has to be at this standard or level. Like, I'm really into the idea of amateur. So the amateur just means for the love of. Like, who wouldn't want to be an amateur? I want to be for the love of. I want to sing for the love of singing. I don't care if I'm not any good. I want to dance for the love of dancing. I want to take photos for the love of taking photos. And yet amateurs become this kind of almost like dirty word, like a bit embarrassing, a bit cringe, just a bit amateur, as opposed to
second rate almost, isn't it? And yet it's not. It's just a different way. Yeah.
And if anything, it's more pure than doing something, because it's your job. You're literally doing it only because it moves you. I think, and so if you cook, if you garden, if you tell your children bedtime stories and make up the end, if you often go out exploring with the dogs and you find new places to go and you're always looking for a new path, all of those things are creative. So if anybody says I'm not a creative person, I can usually within about 30 seconds go, hang on a minute. I mean, I saw an entrepreneur that I was watching a video of who was talking about, I'm not creative. And I thought every one of her videos is beautiful. She dresses so beautifully. She presumably videos from her own house. Her house is gorgeous. It's all just really carefully curated. I think, how can she possibly say that she's not creative when she's made those choices and put that together and created something beautiful to look at and feels really gorgeous as well, all through her choices? That's a really creative act. And yet we say, oh, well, it's not me, I'm not creative because I can't paint, draw, dance, sing, whatever it might be. So I would encourage anybody watching this, if there's something you love doing, find a way to put it into your day. If you like singing, nobody has to listen to you. You don't have to do it on a stage. Just, while your coffee machine's going in the morning, sing a song in your kitchen. or in the shower when nobody can hear you. You know, dance, cook, garden, you know, draw if you want to doodle, write. It's, you know, so much different stuff that you can do and add on to your day. And it doesn't need to have a stage. The stage is you, you know, say you're the masterpiece. It doesn't need to be a purpose for this at the end. I really quite like art that's temporary for that reason. I think there's something really beautiful about making something that will wash away or fade away, or even just was meant to be thrown away, because it takes away that idea of permanence. You know, the mark that we are leaving on the world is our own lives. It's not the picture we painted that goes up on the wall. It's the people we touched. It's the connections we made. It's the love that we shared. That's
how we make other people feel.
Yeah, exactly. And that's your art. That is your masterpiece. You know, the book that you are writing is your own book. You know, all of those kind of quotes about being the author of your own life is, you know, that's what you are creating. That is your biggest creative project, is the life that you want to lead. And that's something that we all do every day. And yet we'll go, oh, but I can't possibly think about being an artistic person when you already are. Sorry, that's me going off on a rant, because I do love telling people that they are actually artistic. Once you get me going, I'm just like, right, tell me what you did this morning. And they'll go, I did this. I go, right, well, that. You did what? You did toast, you did this, you did that.
Yeah, there is, you know, so much in life that you do have to have some creativity. Otherwise, it's stagnant. Yeah, you're going to just stay where you are. You're not going to be moving forward. You're not going to be curious and discovering things. You know,
absolutely.
And that's all part of being, you know, creative and creating the life that you want.
Yeah.
And, you know, essentially, isn't it?
Yeah.
So using it as a way of creating that life with the self-care that you need, you know,
absolutely, yeah,
is essential as well. So how would you say you use it then? You know, you say you have certain things that you would do to help yourself. How do you use it in a
I journal a lot, so I write, and my journal, it just tends to go on the more creative side, mostly because I find it much easier than actually trying to write like full sentences and deep thoughts. I much prefer to kind of write strange little bits of poetry and words that I think are beautiful as a journal. So I journal every day. I doodle everywhere I go. We were talking a little bit about this before, but Zentangles are my thing. If anybody doesn't know what Zentangles are and want to know, please send me a message, because I'm obsessed with them and I will talk to you about them all day. And I have a wonderful workbook that will send you that teaches you how to do Zentangles, because they're my favourite thing.
Yeah, and pop the link in for the freebie, because I think that would be really helpful. Yeah,
it's amazing. It's just a form of doodling, but it's a form of meditative doodling. I mean, doodling in itself is quite a meditative process, but it's a form of meditative doodling that I do all day, every day, everywhere I go. I do things like, say, the breath work, the pain work, things like that. And the main thing that I suppose I'm doing it with at the moment as well is I work with my son, who's got his own anxiety. He's always been a very, very sensitive child. And we work together doing work that helps us process our emotions, create calm spaces, sleep, work through that anxiety. So I spent the last 12 years doing kind of daily creative therapeutic work with him, and which I'm starting to do now actually with clients. It's really interesting. I don't necessarily do it with the children, because I don't think that's as special as doing it with the mums and working with the mums, and then they go and do it with their children. I just think it's so much more beautiful than me and the child sitting there and they don't know who I am, and they don't, you know, they might listen to me, they might not, but I just think there's something really gorgeous. And I think quite often as well as mums, I see all my anxiety and all my nervousness and all the kind of little mental quirks, I suppose, reflected back at me through his eyes, and then I feel incredibly guilty because I passed this all on. And so actually I do need to do that work on myself. I do need that self-care work on myself, and I do need to process my own emotions to be able to help him. So it's a really beautiful process of working with mums to help them get in a space where they feel like they can really, really kind of be the calm that their child needs, but then they can also share these activities. And a lot of it's about bedtime stories and worrying, and how to kind of take worries from being an abstraction to being something physical. So we've talked about drawing the pain, about there's a lot of kind of making little worry monsters and worry dolls and talking to them about that, and then sending them off, doing kind of guided visualizations where we're letting go of things, doing creative writing exercises and all that kind of stuff that I think is just almost like a form of communication, really, creative communication. So that's something that I've done every day for 12 years now. And it's beautiful, and it's a really special time we have together. So it's for my self-care and for his self-care. Yeah. And I'm, you know, again, I'm very wary that when I am in pain, that I'm not necessarily the most pleasant person to be around. You know, that's on me. You know, and that's something that I work really hard on. But I feel like having those moments with my little son that we can be creative together, almost kind of is the flip side of that. Is that, you know, it's from having to go through that process of having to learn to be angry and frustrated and to not take it out on the people around me. And then he's feeling nervous and anxious, and I'm better able to help him process those emotions because I've had to do that for myself. So yeah, so I fairly regularly do that.
Yeah, so we learn, you know, ways to help ourselves, but they inevitably help the children.
Yeah.
What would you say to your younger self? What advice would you give to your younger self?
Oh, that's interesting.
You've learned so much along the way.
Yeah. I think if I could go way back to school, I would just be like, forget what anybody else is trying to tell me. If you know in your heart that you're passionate about something, good is irrelevant. And I think there was, I was watching something and she said, oh, tell me how you feel in the comments, but don't use the word good, okay, fine, great. And you think, oh, how often do we use those value words all the time? Good, what does it even mean? It doesn't mean anything. Joy, love, you know, beauty, all of those things. So yeah, definitely for my much younger self, I would say ignore them, do what you want anyway. So, but I mean, I think I found my path there, found my path back there, and from a position of actually maybe it meant even more because I was able to not be disconnected. I think that's part of the thing. I think the art world is very disconnected at times from the real world, and having lived most of my life in the real world and then stepped over into the art world, I can kind of see, have a foot in both camps and be like, this is ridiculous. These kind of barriers that you're putting up, this idea that you have to look a certain way or behave a certain way or speak a certain way or write a certain way, it's ridiculous. But I can also go back over and go, okay, you're saying that you'd never visit a gallery because you wouldn't know what to do. Okay, well, let's work that through and walk that through. And, you know, you own that place. That's a public gallery. That's your money. Come on. Let's go. How many lottery tickets have you bought this week? I've bought loads. Let's go. That's ours.
Very straightforward talking, aren't you? No messing. Come on.
No, it's a northern thing. I can't help it.
Love it. I think we just not used to it so much down in the south. It's been absolutely wonderful hearing you talk, Shonagh, and you've shared some real nuggets of advice, but also, you know, that joy that you bring with it. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
So
yeah, I feel so passionately about this, and I would just really encourage everyone to just, as a piece of homework, I suppose, just think about something creative that you enjoyed doing when you were a kid. Give it a try now.
Have a go.
Go to the stage. You can do it in your kitchen. You can do it in your bathroom. Nobody needs to look at you. Just give it a try and see, and you might find that becomes part of your self-care routine. Because it's taking you back to an identity that was just so much more free and so unburdened and so beautiful that I think we all need to connect with.
Yeah, that innocence. Yeah, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, that's no problem at all. I've actually forgotten where I am in the day. I think we're not got anybody else today. So tomorrow we're starting at lunchtime. So I will pop in later and just let you know what's happening tomorrow. But for now, thank you again, and we'll catch up soon. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to comment, like and share if you've enjoyed the video.